James McAvoy, aka Professor X himself, talks a little bit about the missed opportunities of the X-Men franchise. And one thing he says is that there was a missed opportunity with specific characters and their development. So this came from an interview with Variety, where James McAvoy was talking about his time and experience playing Charles Xavier, aka Professor X, in the X-Men franchise. And one thing he talked about was the character development and character arc that Professor X goes through. Now, obviously, the X-Men prequels largely centered on the relationship of Charles Xavier and Magneto. And unfortunately, and I've expressed this plenty of times, as great as the actors were, they repeated the same exact storyline and beats over and over. It was always the same thing. They never really got to advance their characters and their relationships. And James says the same thing. He says that one of the best experiences of his life was working on the X-Men films for Fox, but he says he didn't really understand why there was 4 films and the relationship between Xavier and Magneto was never really explored further than what they established in First Class, and that they kind of kept doing the same thing over and over and over. And he just kind of feels like that it wasn't really explored, and that's his biggest criticism, because they didn't take advantage of that relationship and what they set up in First Class. And let me just address this, because I know that the X-Men film have their defenders, especially Days of Future Past, and even Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. I know that those last 2 are insane, but they do. But it's clear that when they got rid of Matthew Vaughn, and we know this for a fact now after First Class, they changed direction on the relationship aspect, and then they kind of largely forgot what the films were about and just started to go, well, focus on other elements, right? Focus on all the pizzazz and explosions and robots and Wolverine, and ignore this other stuff that was happening, which obviously was set up in First Class. And that's unfortunate, but again, it's a criticism that's very valid. And it'll be interesting to see what happens next, if anything, and how they handle moving forward with these characters in the MCU. Because the further we get away from World War II, the harder it is to do something with Magneto. So I wonder if the best we will have ever gotten is truly going to be what we got in the Fox era, which would kind of be disappointing, but at least, I don't know, at least they ended playing chess every time and didn't move past that, really, so it's something.